This is an interview with Mrs. Bella Benoni. The family name was Tuman. Today is April 29th, 1998. I'm John Kent. We are in San Diego, California, and we're doing this in English. Okay, let's start with your full name and family name and spell it also, please.
Okay. I was born Bella Tumin, Thumin, on December 12, 21, in Ternopil, Poland.
And what's your current last name?
My name now is Bella Benoni, Benoni.
And how old would you be now?
76. I'm 76 years old.
And then the names of your family members, parents and so on.
Okay. My father's name was Karol Tumin. My mother's name was Malvina Schechter, married Tumin.
Any brothers and sisters?
I have one sister who lives in New York, Susan Tumin, Silk, married Silk.
Okay, let's start then with your early family life.
Okay.
What could you say about your parents?
I was the first grandchild.
It might be better to look up and not read.
Uh-huh.
I should have mentioned.
Okay, I was the first grandchild and was born into a very loving family. We used to spend a lot of time with my grandparents and my aunts, who at the time were not married. The aunts spent enormous time with me, teaching me to read and to write. When I entered school at age 5, I was already reading and writing fluently. At that time, I needed to be jumped to the second grade. They just couldn't keep me in the first grade anymore. When I was 10, originally my parents had a farm near Ternopil. They decided at one point to sell it, apparently. I don't know why. And they moved away. At that point, I was 10 years old. I was attending the second grade of gymnasium, and I was staying with my aunts to the end of the school year. The next school year, I was sent to another aunt who lived in Lutsk. I spent there 1 year. After that, my parents decided that I should attend high school near the farm which they had. I was staying with my parents' friends for the first year, and then for the next few years with some people who did it for remunerations.
How would you describe your mother and father and sister?
It was an extremely loving family. We were always, during vacations, we were spending all mother sisters used to spend vacation together with the kids either at the grandparents' home and later in our home. We also used to bring the cousins, my father's brother's kids, during summertime, who they lived in Ternopil, and they used to have some breathing some fresh air and eating well during those two months vacation. One year, my parents decided to send me to my aunt who lived in Przemyśl and send me to a Hebrew school. That was the first Lyceum class. The Hebrew was there on a very high level. Okay. I studied Hebrew day and night, and I really couldn't catch up to the level that I would be able to graduate the next year. So then my parents sent me back to Lubachów, where I graduated from the Lyceum in June 1939.
Also, how would you describe yourself as a young person?
Very shy. Loving. Interacting with friends and family.
And what were your expectations for your future if the war hadn't interrupted everything?
If the war wouldn't have started, I would have been a veterinarian. Since that happened once when one of my beloved horses died. And then I decided that when I would be a veterinarian, they are not going to die anymore on me. Okay, the life on the farm during vacations was fantastic. We used to go horse riding. We used to, during winter time, we were ice skating and, how do I call it? And skiing in the winter. And my father also insisted that I will learn all the trades on the farm. So I really knew how to milk cows, how to cut corn, how to assemble the hay. I mean, I just knew everything. And that really proved very prophesizing, because that helped me, that really saved my life during the war.
Okay. You had mentioned about the Hebrew school that you went to for a while. In what way were you and your family Jewish? What did that mean to you at that age?
We really planned to go to Israel. And we lived really only surrounded by Gentiles. I never had Jewish friends. They were always Gentiles, and my parents just decided that they need to give us some Jewish identity, and because of that we should be going to a Jewish school and be with Jews. I wanted to mention that our house was always kosher. And during holidays, we used to bring the surrounding Jews, and we used to bring a Vorbeter, a Chazan, and they used to spend with us the high holidays.
What is it that makes you cry about that?
Just remembering those poor people coming. They're very, very poor. I remember once I went to visit one who used to teach me to pray Hebrew, and he got sick. And I went to visit him, and there was a big room. There was a cow in the room. There were chickens in the room. And he was lying on a bed. I don't think there were sheets on it. There is something that I will never forget, how people could have lived in Poland,
What standard of living did your family have? Were they a little better off or the same?
We were farm owners. We had a house of 6 or 7 rooms. We had at least 2 people who worked permanently at home. One was cooking and one was cleaning. And we had somebody who used to come in to do the laundry. Besides that, we had a lot of people who worked for the farm. There were 80 cows and 24 horses. So they needed some work to be done with, and we had like 900 acres of land, which we cultivated.
Were the workers on the farm local Polish people then, not Jewish?
Not Jewish. They were Polish and Ukrainians. They lived there were 3 buildings, and each building had, I think, 4 families. Or maybe more than that. I just don't remember. You remember we were in Huta Kryształowa?
How could you maybe generalize the relationships between the Jewish people in that area and the local Polish people?
It was, we didn't feel any anti-Semitism. But maybe because we were in that position. I do remember that my sister my sister is 6 years younger than I, and they tried to send her to a local school, and apparently the teacher at one point said something derogative about the Jews, and my parents took her out from that school, and that's how it started, that Hebrew school in Przemyśl. That's what started it.
And how about your parents? Did they have any comments to make about being Jewish, surrounded by Poles? In other words, what was the general tone
the
growing
only
up?
comment what I remember, that they didn't want me to speak Jewish. Because what they felt, if I will go to the university, I will encounter when my Polish is not going to be very clear. And all those kids who did speak Jewish, their Polish wasn't, for some reason, wasn't very, very clean. My parents did have Jewish friends, and they were in Lubachów. And one was a merchant, and they were two dentists, wife and a son. You remember Cela Kuriański?
It's best not to talk off camera,
sorry.
I should have mentioned, sorry. What other good memories, bad memories do you have of your growing up period? To give us a little color of your early life.
It was just going and seeing my grandparents. My grandparents and my parents always allowed me to bring friends home. During the end of the year, our class used to go for a day to the farm. Okay, and I used to go during summertime. I also used to go and sell produce and butter to the nearby
Well, maybe you could say
resort places. There were two resort places. One was Horenets and one was Niemirów. And I really liked it. That was my first encounter with money, and that I was collecting money, weighing things on a portable, I think that gave me some preparation for life, that life is not only that you just study, and I sure did enough of studying. We were not allowed to go to movies. No.
Do you know why?
Because maybe we would learn some things that are bad for us. We were wearing in school uniforms, that all of us will be looking the same, and nobody, whoever was poorer or better off, we just were the same. In 1939, my parents decided to reward me, since I got a fantastic graduated with big honors, they decided to send me to a resort place for a few weeks. My father brought me there and settled me in a pension with some people that he felt they were appropriate. And I was there for a few weeks. I had a friend, it wasn't a boyfriend, but somebody who really was very interested in me. And I got a phone call from him one day that the war is nearing and I should be going home. I remember I couldn't get on the train. That was August the 30th. No, August the 29th. Okay, the trains were already full with soldiers who were going in all directions. And I was taken in by some people through the window because the entrances were completely blocked. I went to the nearest town where I needed to change trains, and my friend was waiting there. We had a few hours to wait till the next train, and it was really good that he was with me because they were a lot, only soldiers on the trains and soldiers just walking around in the train station. That took us, I think we were there until the early morning hours, and in the morning I took the train and I went home. On the 30th of August, I arrived at home. At home, at that point, the wheat and corn were already in the storage. And on September 1st, the war broke out. The German airplanes started to fly over us, and since we were like 4 miles to the nearest train station and the railroads, they started to bomb them. We were hiding in a small canyon which was really surrounded by tall linden trees. 2 days later, those two couples that I mentioned before that were friendly with my parents came from Lubachov to our farm. And we decided that we are going to leave the farm and go into the direction of Romania and then cross the border and leave for Israel, you know, without any money and without anything, but still that was the plan, the initial plan. On the 9th of September, we took some food and 3 pair of horses, and after a few days, we arrived in Ternopil. in Ternopil we parted from our friends. They decided to go towards the Romanian border, and my parents decided to stay in Ternopil with my uncles and aunts from my father's side, my father's brothers, and also Rosh Hashanah, the New Year was approaching. So, you know, we thought that the Poles will be able to sustain, you know, the war and to bring the Germans back to Germany.
How come your parents decided to go to Israel if they believed that the Poles could protect Poland?
That was, I think, my father was dreaming about going to Israel and establishing a farm there. And since we left the farm, that was timing, you know, what we couldn't do, like sell out everything and go with some money to Israel. We decided to go anyway.
At that point, was there a sense of danger to the Jewish people in particular?
I mean, there was anti-Semitism. We didn't feel it, but there was. I remember the director of the gymnasium was making fun of my Jewish friends whose Polish wasn't very, very clear. You know, so there was anti-Semitism.
Do you know if your parents had any legal way of leaving Poland? Was it necessary to have passports or visas or anything like that? Or were you all trying to escape?
At that point, probably you needed some legal papers. We were not, I know that my father did have a passport, but I don't think that any of us had a passport. And there was no legal way that you could go to Israel. But what we thought, that because of the war, they will be letting people in to, at that time it was Palestine. And it was under the English rule.
And how did you feel about leaving Poland?
Absolutely nothing. I mean, you know, wherever your parents tell you to go, you just go.
Okay, we'll switch tapes now.
Okay. I'm going to get a drink of water.
Benoni on April 29th, 1998. Okay?
In 1939, the Germans made an agreement with the Russians that they are going to divide Poland. And Russia will take eastern Poland, and western Poland was to be under the German rule. The Russians came in September, I think.
Which side was Tarnopol on?
Tarnopol was on the Russian side.
Okay.
It was in eastern Poland. They were very friendly, very limited in education. I mean, that's what was our impression. Trying to be very helpful. I knew Ukrainian. No, we start. In the first place, I decided to continue the studies and go to the university and, to a veterinarian school. I went to Lvov. That was the nearest university. I passed the exams, and then I was notified that I won't be able to continue the studies because my parents had a farm and they were exploiting people. I came back to Ternopil. We needed some means to live. My father started to work, but that wasn't enough, and for me not being able to go to school, I needed to work. I found a job in the railroad station as a some sort of in the office. I knew Ukrainian, and the transfer from Ukrainian to Russian was very easy for me. And besides that, apparently, I was very able in humanistic studies. So I was learning languages very easily. And in no time, I knew Russian. After 2 or 3 months, they left. They were transferred to another town. And my father knew somebody who was the head bookkeeper of a mill in Ternopil. He took me into the office, and I was supposed to help out. After a few weeks, the Russians sent in an instructor to instruct us how to keep the books of the mill. At that point, they incorporated another mill, which was also not far from Ternopil. So we needed to keep books for 2 mills. The head bookkeeper was an older man who knew Polish and Yiddish, but Russian was in no way for him to comprehend. So the instructor decided that he's going to train only me, and then when he went back, he suggested that they are going to take me for 1 year to Lvov to teach me bookkeeping and administration.
Just one question before we continue. What happened to your family's plans to go to Romania and then to Israel?
Our friends came back because the border was closed. Romania didn't let anybody in.
Okay.
Okay, so that took care of that. I went for that year to Lvov. It was a very, very hard year. We studied 8 hours. We were working in the office 8 hours. And on Sundays, that was the day off, we were we were doing some public work. We were cleaning the streets, cleaning parks, working in gardens. I mean, we didn't have a second time during that year. After a year, I came back, the chief bookkeeper of those 2 mills, and I was there until the war broke out between Russia and Germany. That was, I think, June 21, 41.
Up until that point, what did you know about the course of the war and what Germany was doing elsewhere?
There were rumors that they are not nice to Jews. We knew about that because we knew about Crystal Night, what happened. We knew what happened when they went into Austria. But until that point, they were probably behaving. Even, you know, it was, we felt that probably we might have been better off with the Germans than with the Russians, because the Russians with whom I worked in the mill came the night when they were evacuating Ternopil, and they wanted to take me and the whole family to Russia with them. And my mother thought that we will be able to get the farm back maybe when the Germans will come in. And we didn't go with them. Okay. After 2 days, the Germans came in immediately after the Russians left. 2 days later, in July, they started a pogrom, and it started July 4th. No, they came in on July the 2nd. The Germans came in July the 2nd, yeah, 1941. During that pogrom, 6,000 men were killed in Ternopil. And one of my uncles got killed too.
How did you know that 6,000 were killed?
That we knew later on. Probably the Jewish, I don't know, I think they formed immediately Judenrat when the Germans came in.
What did you and your family and sister see and experience in that pogrom?
I will tell you one experience which I had during that pogrom. One of those evenings, we were sitting at my uncle's house, and the Germans were coming. I was sitting in the kitchen. There was a bedroom, and then was and then there was a living room. The men were sitting and playing cards in the living room. There was my father, my uncle, and my cousin. Maybe there was somebody else, but I really don't remember. I recall those three men. My cousin was still a young kid. And while we were, all the 10 men went in to the, when they came in, they asked, where are the men? And we said, you know, they are in that room. So all of them went to that room and started a conversation with my father. My father went to school in Austria, and he lived many years there, so he was fluent in German. And during that time, one of the soldiers came out and shined a flashlight on me because, you know, it was still the war going on between Russia and Germany, and we were not supposed to have any lights on. And I was crying. And he asked me, why are you crying? I knew German very well at that point too. And I said, because I know when you are, after you leave, I won't have a father and won't have, the men will be gone. And he, you know, I was young and with blue eyes and blonde hair, and I apparently reminded him of someone of his family. And he patted my hair and said, don't worry, nothing is going to happen to your man. And he went in to the room and said, Kameraden kommt. You know, he wanted them out. And they started to object to it, but he was apparently the commander, and he just took them out. I can tell you, I can still hear, they had those shoes with nails in. You know, when I concentrate, I still can hear those steps in the hall and in the house when they came in. So at that point, my father was safe, and my uncle. But another uncle got killed in that. It wasn't action, it was really a pogrom. The next day, they were the Germans were taking women and young girls to work. My mother was taken to the jail to wash the dead. The Russians apparently killed all the prisoners in the jail before they left. And what the Germans said, that pogrom that they did was in retaliation for that Russian killing. After that, we were cleaning some houses for the for the German officers to live in. They were houses that probably or people evacuated or I just don't know from where, or they just came in and said that and that and that is going to be our house and you just move out. I don't know if they were Jewish houses. They apparently were Jewish houses that we cleaned. After that job finished, I got a job with Schutzpolizei, also cleaning for them. They were Germans, very, very nice. They were very nice to me. They used to give me, by that point, we already lived in a ghetto. I think that in September, we needed, September 39, we needed
39?
41.
Okay.
Yeah, in September 41, we moved to the ghetto. We do know that okay, the life in ghetto was horrible. We lived in very small places. There were usually 2-3 families in a one-bedroom apartment. We moved in with my other uncle. They had the bedroom and we had the kitchen. The ghetto started to be surrounded with barbed wires. We had Jewish police in the ghetto. And in the morning, at that point, they were not groups yet. When you had Arbeitspass, it was some sort of identification that you were working. You were able to leave the ghetto and come back. And it didn't have to be at a certain time. When I worked for the Schutzpolizei, they used to give me food, and they used to get a lot of rations, and they couldn't use it. I was also translating some books from Russian to German for them, and maybe because of that they valued me very much and were giving me, all the food. I worked there probably for 2 or 2.5 months until they moved with the front to the east. I started to work for also some Schutzpolizei, but in a private home. They were very unpleasant, very demanding, very anti-Semitic. At one point, one of the guys wanted to start some love with me, and I said to him, I'm going to report you because that's Judenschande. They were not supposed to have any relationship with Jews. So that really got him back. I didn't see him after that. He never came home. Apparently, he said maybe to those other guys that he lived with. There was no food in that house. There was work. I mean,
was this in the ghetto or outside?
It was outside.
So you had one of those passes?
I had, yeah, I had that pass or that ID or whatever it was called. Yeah.
Can you talk a little more about the ghetto, how it was set up, who was operating it?
There was a Judenrat. There was some elders who were supposed to take from the Germans. The Germans were telling them what they are supposed to do with us, and they were transferring it to the Jews. My father was approached to be one of those Judenraters, and he declined. He didn't want to. He preferred to work as a laborer, some construction job, than to be, to be a policeman over Jews. And I never mentioned before that my father was a soccer player, and he was in the Maccabi, and then he was also in the Maccabi movement in Poland.
At the time, what did you believe was going on? In other words, why were you all put into a ghetto?
I mean, we knew that that they don't mean well. We still didn't know how bad it's going to be, and at that point we already gave to the Germans all the fares and all the gold. We couldn't have radios. I mean, we were treated like cattle. After that encounter with that German policeman, that my father decided that I would be better off in another place. And there was an Arbeitslager. It's a working camp near Tarnopol. It was probably about 4 miles from Tarnopol. Somehow I was drafted there. I think that it was my father's doing, and I went to that Berezovica. In the beginning, I was working in the fields with everybody else from sunrise to sunset. We slept in barracks. I don't remember how we were getting washed. There was a latrine outside. After a while, my father bribed that manager of that Arbeitslager I think he gave him a watch. And I was transferred, I was in charge of the geese. So they had probably, I don't know, 200 or 250 geese. So I was bringing them to get some fresh grass. And I was watching them. I was supposed to prepare food for them and feed them, and when they laid eggs, to get the eggs. But I was freer. And the pasture that I was bringing them was near the village. And I got to know the villagers. I started to help them to do some mending and to do some work that I could do while I was watching the geese.
What was the attitude of the villagers about the ghetto situation?
They felt very bad about it. About the ghetto, I don't know, because they used to go to the ghetto in exchange for beautiful clothes, for bread and milk, you know. So I think that they probably were feeling fine. I met a family, and after a while I found out that he really got my father's suit, that the son got my father's suit that they bought, you know, for some exchange. Okay?
No, keep going, we have another minute.
Okay. And that family started to be very friendly to me and started to bring me some work that I could do while I was weiding the geese, and I got from them food, which I could bring to my parents. And in the next episode, I tell you how I was going to the ghetto to bring over the food to my parents.
Okay, we'll stop now. Bella Benoni, April 29th, 1998. Up till that point, were you aware of any kind of underground efforts going on,
No.
false identification, anything at all like that?
No, no.
Did you ever try to get false papers?
No, later on.
Later? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, continuing.
I used to go try to make once a week a trip to my parents and my sister to the ghetto. I used to remove my how you call it, Magen David.
The arm
We
pad,
used
armband?
to armband. And I used to walk towards the ghetto Ternopil.
How did you feel having that yellow
You
star
were
on-
branded. And that,
What was your attitude about having to wear that?
I mean, you know, you were just, I think that bringing us to the ghetto and putting us together with so many people, they just killed the identity of us. We were just not individuals anymore. We were just put together. And whatever they told you, that was really from the Judenrat, that notification that we have to wear a band when we go out on the street. So I used to put it in my pocket and go to the ghetto. That was sure enough in the evening after the counting. And I did used to notify that commander that I was going, because sometimes I didn't come back the next morning early enough. But he probably, after that bribe, he was fine. I used to get under the barbed wire when I used to come closer to the ghetto, I used to put on the armband, crawl under the barbed wire, get to my parents' place where they lived, bring the food, and early in the morning I used to head back to Berezovica. That happened a few times until one day I came home, and during the night the Germans started an action, and that was in November 42. That was already the second action for my sister, and my father, and my mother. They already were taken in a previous one in August, and they were able to come back to the ghetto. They jumped the train and they were able to come back to the ghetto. In that action, we were taken, my father, my sister, and I, and we covered my mother, and she was, no, my mother was also, yeah, all of us, all four of us were taken from the attic down. There was Jewish police with German police who came to take us. We were led to the trains. We were beaten on the way with sticks. We were led to a place near the train station, which was probably in a walking, I mean, we were walking in 4 or 5 in groups, and the German soldiers were around us. I just cannot understand. There were usually not too many German soldiers, that nobody really tried to overpower them. You know, they were like 3 or 4 German soldiers. We could have overpowered them. But I think that diminishing what they did of us, they took all the initiative out. We were there for about 14 hours with no food and no water. I remember that when we were taken during the action, my father already knew that we need to take some food with us, and I think we did have some bread, which we shared with people who were around us. I mean, it wasn't that we had loaves of bread, but we probably had a few slices of bread. And I wanted to mention, at that point in the ghetto, I mean, we were getting some rations which were extremely meager. There was hunger. People were dying. People who didn't have what to exchange, like clothes for food, were dying from hunger in the streets.
What was it like for you to see death like that?
I mean, it was, you know, you just said, and you know, and you just continue, and you knew that your time is probably coming too. But we tried to stay alive. Father told us to pick up some pieces of iron on the railroad, because we would need that to be able to open the trains. How do you call it? Train...
Windows?
No, they didn't have windows. No, but what we did, they didn't have... It wasn't very hard. I remember I was doing it with a piece of iron from the... you know, you just could... when you digged into it, they were probably not very sturdy. So you could really make a hole pretty easy. And what we decided at that place where we were kept together, that since one of our friends, those two dentists, were in Ghetto Lvov and were writing to us the situation was much better there, we decided that when we do jump out from the train, all of us are going to try to go to Ghetto Lvov to meet with those friends. And we decided that we are going all meet there if we jump and if we survive the jump. I jumped one of the first people from the train.
How fast was the train going?
The trains were going extremely fast. The Germans were on top of the train, how you call those, wagons? Yes, and they were shooting. But, you know, we did know that we are going really to be killed in Belzec. At that point we knew, because there were some previous actions where people went and nobody came back.
What did you know about that particular
destination? We only knew that they gassed them in chambers, and then they burned them.
How did this information get back to you?
We don't know. We don't know. It's that information somehow arrived. We didn't have newspapers, and I don't think that the Germans were writing it in the newspapers. We did have from time to time some announcements from the Judenrat, which came in some pieces of paper, you know, what we are supposed to do and what we are not supposed to do. By that time, the ghetto was already much, much smaller, since they took so many people out in previous actions.
Did your parents and sister also jump?
Yes. Everybody, they jumped the second time. My sister said, okay, that apparently she doesn't remember that I jumped the third time. But I jumped from the train, and I did hear shooting. I fell on on the railroad. There were some stones. I fell on some stones, and the next time I know, I was awakened in a barn of some people. Apparently, I slept like for 2 hours, completely unconscious. They fed me. I told them that I am Jewish. They said that there are a lot of people who are jumping, and some of them are being killed because they were shooting all the time. And after a day being at that barn, I started to remember, and I decided to go in the direction to Ghetto Lvov. How long it took me to walk, I don't know. I think those people gave me some food for the trip, and I was walking. At night, I probably slept in the forest. I tried to go through the forest to avoid the Germans. The Germans were afraid of the forests. I think that the resistance started all to build at that point.
Were you traveling alone then? Or
alone, just
So
alone.
Where was your family then?
I hope that when I come to Lvov, my family will be there.
I see.
You know, we decided that that's what we are going to do. I came, I was walking, and I don't know how long, and then suddenly I saw some lights. And there were from another lights near Lvov was a Jewish camp for working people, and it was in Zimna Voda. I went there. I waited until the group. At that point, you could only enter the ghetto or the Arbeits lager camp only in groups. So I waited until a group came in. I swung with them into that ghetto.
You mentioned something funny the other day about the walking stick.
Oh,
remember that?
Yeah. Okay. I decided not to be alone, and so my father told us to take a hat because they are going to beat us up during the action. So I had a hat, and I put that hat on that walking stick, and I used to look at it and say, oh, they are two, we are two, I am not alone. That's also something that's a survival from the farm. And I also was very well, I had a very good orientation of the sun. I knew in which direction, if they told me that I am supposed to go north, I knew in which direction I was going, and that made it much easier because I was going towards Lvov.
That Jewish camp that you referred to a couple of minutes ago,
Yeah, Zimna Voda.
what was the purpose of that, or what were they doing?
They had working people concentrated there. They lived there, and in the morning they were going out to work. They said that, I remember I wanted really to stay there like another day, and they said it's very dangerous during daytime. They come in and they see if there are not some sick people, or the German police was coming in to check that everybody went to work. So they decided that I really need to live with them in the morning.
What did you find in the ghetto when you got back?
I didn't get back to the ghetto. No, I apparently, no, that Zimna Voda was later on. That was during my second jump. No, I got somehow to the, after that first jump, I got somehow to near Ghetto Lvov. I wasn't wearing an armband because I lost it in all the, you know, when I jump out. And I approached a Jewish woman to ask her, where is the Ghetto Lvov? An Ukrainian policeman stopped me and said, why are you talking to a Jewish woman? The Gentiles were not supposed to have any contact with the Jews. And I said to him, I am Jewish too. So he said, okay, if you are Jewish, we go to the Gestapo. Okay, we went to the Gestapo. I was interrogated by the Germans, and they tried to talk me out of it that I am not Jewish. And I said, they probably knew how bad it is to be a Jew. I still wanted to have my people around. They put me, after, you know, I convinced them that I am Jewish, they put me into jail. There was a very tiny cell, and when I was thrown in there, I met a friend from school and her mother. Apparently in Lvov, people didn't know what's going on yet. Maybe the action started in Tarnopol. Because it was really news for everyone there in the cell that we are going to, that they are going to shoot us and they are going to kill us or gas us. While we were there, we had they were talking about two options. Either they are going to bring us near Lvov to a place where they are going to shoot us and put us in a common grave, or they are going to take us to Belzec, to those gas chambers. And I told them that when we are going to go to that shooting place, I don't think that we have a lot of chances to run away, because they put you on big trucks, covered trucks, and there is a lot of German police going. We saw those trucks before going probably in Ternopil. I saw it. And there was not too much chance to survive. But I told them, if we are going to be taken to Belzec, what we need to do is to break out again from those train wagons, and that we should pick up the iron and be able to get it, to be able to make some holes, to be able to jump out. My friend and her mother said that they are not going to jump because they can break a leg, or they can be killed. So I said to them, you are going to be killed anyway. They never jumped. I did jump out when we were brought to the train. And at that point, I survived, and that was the time when I went to the Zimna Voda. At Zimna Voda, the Jews gave me the exact directions how to go to the ghetto. I didn't have any problems to find it. And this time I waited also until the group started to come back from work. And I came to the ghetto and I found my parents' friends.
Briefly, when you were on the train and making the opening to jump out, what did the others say? Was there any decision going on?
Some people decided that they will try to break out. Some people were so disgusted with life that they didn't care. They were like in apathy. The life in that cell was horrible. We were like 20 or 23 people, I think, in a room. There was hardly, we really couldn't even sit down with stretched out feet. I did tell everybody to try and save some rations of that bread that we used to get, that we will have it on the way to Belzec, that we will have something to eat, that we won't be starving. And
did anybody else jump, as far as you know?
I don't know. I do hope that some people jumped and some people survived. I know that I was the only one, to my knowledge, who, I mean, the train was really moving extremely fast. So if somebody jumped 2 minutes after me, they were probably a mile away. So it wasn't that you could really meet some people who jumped out of the train. I came to Ghetto Lvov. The friends received from my parents a postcard that they were back in Ghetto Tarnopol. So I knew that they were alive. That was really the last communication that I had, because after that they didn't allow any mail to go from ghetto to ghetto. The friends got me a false card, a false W2, which meant that you were working. And I went out with a group to work. That was an electric company, and I was cleaning the windows and the holes there. At one point I got injured, and I needed surgery, and after that I was transferred to work in the kitchen, because with that hand I couldn't, my thumb is still sore. I mean, that surgery was without any anesthesia done, but he did a good job and he cleaned it out. It was a big infection. I started to work in the kitchen, and I got some quarters with other 4 women that was already called, not the ghetto, but it was already called Arbeitslager. It means working camp. I lived with 4 other women in a very tiny room. Both my neighbors on the bed had typhoid fever. How I didn't contract it, I don't know, but I didn't. At that point, we had some showers, and we could shower, and we could wash our clothes. I mean, it was really a luxury in that place.
Okay, let's switch tapes again. April 29th, 1998.
Coming back from work at one evening, we saw 12 Jewish policemen hanging from the electricity and telephone poles.
Okay.
It was a horrible sight. What they wanted to tell us that sure enough, to get our hopes even more down, and to tell us that if you don't obey, that's what's going to be your destiny. If we could have done it to the policemen, we can do it to you too.
Did you ever find out why those policemen in particular?
No. It might be that they disobeyed, and it might be that random just go because they decided to do something. While I was working I met a Ukrainian chauffeur who told me that that he is ready to help me to leave the ghetto if I would get myself some false identity. We were paid for work something. And apparently, and maybe my parents' friends gave me some money. I was able to obtain a false birth certificate. That chauffeur took me at one point to take some pictures because everybody needed to have a kennekarte. That was some sort of identification. And with the birth certificate and with the picture, you could obtain such identification. He told me also to bring out some clothes from the ghetto, and he took it. And apparently his wife was transporting some Jews to Częstochowa, which was in western Poland. And apparently there Jews, according to her, Jews lived freely, and they were able to work, or they were drafted to go to Germany to work as Gentiles.
Did you have a false name then also?
Yeah, I had a false name. And
what was your name?
Janina Solak. I continued to be in the ghetto. One day I had an encounter going to work. I had an encounter with Eichmann, Adolf Eichmann. We were going to work, and they were taking out all the women from the groups and putting them at the ghetto border. And sure enough, we knew that that's something that that they are not going to come back from there. We were in the group 4 women, but 2 of them decided not to go and stay in the ghetto and hide somewhere. I decided to go because I had enough of that fantastic life. And so was also a woman whom I befriended, Carola. Don't remember her last name. When we came, Carola was much older than I was. When we came to the gate, Eichmann was there with 2 other policemen. He told us to step out from the group. We did. And he asked the group manager to tell what we are doing. And we said that we are cooking for all those men. There was a group, I don't know, of 30 or 40 men. And he told the other woman to step out and go aside. I was looking him straight in the eyes with no fear I don't know what made Eichmann say, die eine soll sie gehen. This one should go. And I was the only woman who went through that gate and survived. And I remember I was very, very famous in the ghetto. People came in the evening to look at me, you know, what I did and, you know, how did I survive.
What did you know about Eichmann at that point?
We knew that he was the main mind behind killing of the Jews. Okay, that's all what we knew about. And I knew it was Eichmann because when we were approaching the gate, you know, people were telling, don't go, Eichmann is there.
So was he the one in charge of the selections most of the time?
He was, yes. I mean, that selection, I don't know if it was most of the time, but that selection, he was in charge.
Do you have any guess as to why he judged you differently? Were you healthier than the others or different in any way?
Maybe I was healthier, I was younger, and you know, like with that other German, maybe I reminded him of someone. You know, I mean, you never know. I didn't look Jewish, you know.
How is it that you weren't afraid, considering his reputation?
Because at one point you have enough of life. And maybe I thought, if they are going to take us to the train, I'm going to jump again. I mean, you know, I just don't know what was my thought at that time. So I worked, that was sometimes, I think, like in February 43. I continued to work there, and I was working in the kitchen, and one day, sometimes in June, that Ukrainian man came over and said, tonight you are not going back to the ghetto. And he was a chauffeur who was working with the Germans. And he knew about that they are planning really to completely liquidate the ghetto. And that night really was the last action of the ghetto. I stayed with that family for about a week. The family had a 7-year-old son. I remember I wasn't going out, and they started to fear, because to conceal a Jew meant death not only for the Jew but also for the whole family. And when they started to be uncomfortable, I decided that I am not going to be the one who is going to jeopardize their lives. They told me that there is a black market, that people go somewhere outside Lvov, bring back from the surrounding what are the farms, not farms or where people live not far.
Some like a collective situation?
No, 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 no. People had small farms, and they live in near a town, not in a town, but what are they?
Like what, a village? Or something?
Village. Okay. They live in villages, and I should go really to the train station, and there I can meet some people, and we can go and buy flour, bring flour back, and I really met there some people. I don't know if I had some money from the ghetto or those people gave me some money. I don't know. But I had some clothes, and the clothes that I brought out from the ghetto before, I took that, and I had some money, and I just joined a group of 2 or 3 young people, and we were going together to the villages. We slept one night in the barn there. The next morning we took a train or afternoon to Lvov. We brought the flour, and there were people who already were waiting for us to come on the train. And we sold it, the flour, and I slept the next night in the train station, which was pretty safe because I had no place where to go. That went on probably for 2-3 weeks. When I went to the village, I had some food, and I was bringing some food to have in the train station. I survived very well. In the village, I was able to wash up. After a few weeks, the group of mine decided that they can sell the flour for much more money if they are going to bring it to Lvov, not to sell it in the station to those middlemen. Sure enough, I gave him my flour, and they were supposed to come next day for the next train with the money to come back and go back to the village. The next morning they didn't show up. They did give me the address where they lived. I went there. Nobody was there. I don't know if it was a false address or they just knew that I am going to look for them. I was in despair. I was sitting on the curb of the street, very disappointed, very disillusioned, and somebody approached me. Why are you so sad? Apparently I was also crying. And what can he do for me? That was a man probably in his early 30s. And I said, one thing you can do, you can just notify the Gestapo that I am Jewish and you found me, and and they will already finish me off. And he said to me, I really don't want to talk with you here. Why don't we go to my office, which is nearby? I have a sandwich there. First you eat something, and then we are going to talk. And he gave me a sandwich and, I don't know, some water or, I don't know, something to drink. And he started to ask me about my life before and where I am from, and during that conversation, he said, I was telling them that we had a very good relationship with the people who worked for my father, and we decided that I should really head towards the farm, my parents' farm. He gave me some money, and I got myself somehow to the train station.
Do you remember the name of this man, by the way?
Never got his name. You know that I don't remember the name of that Ukrainian family who helped me. You know, it was something that people just wanted to help, you know. Some people wanted to see you dead, but some people just wanted to help. I came to the train station and I saw a girl from my high school who was a year ahead of time in school. I didn't approach her because I didn't want to jeopardize her. I knew that she knew that I was Jewish, but she approached me and she said, okay, I'm going home too. And home was somewhere, my home was like the farm was like 2 or 3 stations before she was coming out. At that point, I had those photographs and I had that false birth certificate on me. 2 Ukrainian policemen started to be interested in us and came over and talked with us on the train. They were usually, you know, looking for, I don't know, or for Jews, or I don't know. They were just looking for someone. And my friend said to me, I think that they might be suspicious of something. Why don't you, they left us, you know, and they said that they are going to come back. She said, why don't you just go out on the next station? Which I did. That was one of those kurorts that I told you that I was in Horinets, and that the farm was near Horinets and near I'm hungry, I need some food. Okay. I jumped out. I mean, I came out from the train and I came to Horenets. In Horenets, I found out that a friend of my parents, who was a doctor, is still practicing their medicine and was working for the Germans. Sure enough, I went there to see him. He was petrified to see me. He was afraid that if they catch me, they catch him and his family. And he gave me some money and told me to go and rent a room somewhere.
Do you remember his name?
Yeah, Dr. Ehrenreich. Yeah. I didn't see his wife. He didn't invite me home. I went to and rented a room somewhere. And at that point, an aunt whom I loved very much, with whom I stayed 1 year in Przemyśl when I went to Hebrew school, Aunt Hanya came to me in my dream and said to me, you will need, whenever I will come in the dream to you, you will need to leave the place immediately. I stayed there for a few days, and I was dreaming about Aunt Hanya. I just packed up my things and I was going. There was a holiday, and people from the farm came to the to church. And while I knew the way very well from Horinets to the farm, and while I was walking, I just met them. They were extremely happy to see me, and sure enough, they took me home to the farm. They lived in those barracks that I told you, or whatever it was called. There was that housing for people who worked on the farm. They took me there, and they decided that they are going to hide me in the attic. The entrance to the attic was really from all the four apartments or whatever. So when they were hiding me, they were afraid that somebody else will find out that they are hiding me. I was staying there the whole day. It was unbearably hot. But in the evening, I used to go down. I used to wash up, eat, and sleep in a bed. And in the morning, I was going again to that place. They were extremely good to me. They used to go on Sundays. They were not working. They were going to the nearest town to buy for me white rolls, because I wasn't used to eat that black bread that they had. They didn't know that I was happy to have that black bread. But they wanted really to get the best for me, so they used to bring me some, every Sunday they used to bring me white rolls from town. At that point, on the farm, we had an alcohol factory. They were making from potatoes and beets, sweet beets. They were making alcohol. There was usually a trend that only Jews knew how to run those factories. And there was still another Jew who was on that farm, who was running that factory. I think, I am not sure, that those people did tell that Jewish guy that I am hiding. I am not sure, but I do know that they brought me some information, you know, from him. And maybe they just met him and tried to find out some things for me. One day the Germans came, told that Jewish fellow to walk, and after that year's crop was already worked into the alcohol, they just killed him from the back. When that happened, I felt that those people were really scared to keep me there longer. And since I didn't want to jeopardize nobody's life, I decided to leave. I left the next morning and was walking. I wanted to get a job on the next farm, and I thought, somehow I will. It was probably August 43. Because they were bringing in the corn, and they were working on the combines. And I went there, and I had very delicate hands, and they didn't want to give me that job because they didn't think that I would be able to pick up, that was a big, with the straw, the wheat,
Bales?
a bale, yeah, that you were unbuttoning and putting to the combine. That was hard work, but they didn't think that I would be able to do it. So, but I still wasn't, very disappointed. And I'm walking, and a man with a pair of horses on a carriage stopped me. "Where are you walking?" I was, I had short clothes from the city, not peasants' clothes.
We better stop and switch tapes.
Okay. I need to